morning, good evening, good afternoon. As always, I'm Rev Rich, and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday as we start our new book series. And as you can see, I brought two lovely ladies with me. One you definitely know from Tea Time Truth Talk, which is my daughter Alicia. And of course, as you know, many of us are moving our small little community into a more of a ministry in time. So I introduce you to our first lady and my wife, Aisha Pacheco. So with that being said, like on Tell You Time Truth Talk, as my daughter throws it to me, I'm going to throw it to her and say,
as always, like, subscribe, hit that little bell so you're always notified when another video comes up. And of course, share, because you never know, if this message doesn't hit you, it could hit somebody else.
So with that being said, as always, we try to bring something new, and we did a book series just before last week. And one of the things that I found in our community is that when we move into a more new thought um, pattern, we get lost sometimes, especially when we come from different backgrounds. And I thought that that's what made this perfect, because we're going to be introducing the book Alternatives, and it is by William L. Fisher. And it's a new approach to traditional Christian beliefs. So many of you already know I'm a Unity minister. And if you ever go to unity.org and read what we believe in, we have a more practical Christianity where it's not just about the traditional beliefs, but it's about how we use it in our life. But the reason I brought this group together is because of our diverse backgrounds. So, honey, why don't you tell them what was your religious background?
I was raised by my grandmother, who was Southern Baptist. So I was pretty much raised Southern Baptist in New York. So I had a little bit of that Southern upbringing. You know, manners mattered. Religion was a very big thing in our household. Um, we pretty much went to church whenever the door was open. So we used to have the Saturdays where my grandmother would make tons of sweet potato pies and sell them, and make money to raise money for the church. And we'd be at church on Sundays. I started Sunday school around 8:30, and it ended around 11. And from 11 until almost 3 o'clock, I would sit in the pews next to my grandmother until you smelled the fried chicken cooking downstairs. And after church, it was some good old food. But it was a very strict religion based upon, from what I remember, fear. Because anytime I did something, I was always afraid, if God saw it, am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get in trouble? What's going to happen if I say this? And what's going to happen if I, do this? And all those kinds of things. So it was very much based upon fear, which I questioned something one time, and I was so afraid to go home because I was like, oh, you're not supposed to question your pastor.
Choose life.
Whatever they say goes. So I was like, oh boy, because something just didn't quite sit well with me. And I asked one of the questions, and the pastor was like, still to this day, I don't have an answer. So if you're watching, still waiting. So, But yeah, it was very a religious family, built upon love, but also fear of what God is going to do, or where we're going to go when we die if we did the wrong things. And, was your name signed in the book of life, and, things like that. So, yeah.
So this is the one time I can say I was glad I was Catholic. We were in and out in an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, I was an altar boy, so if I ever had to do 2 services, I had to be there. But it was still in, out, we out. There was nothing more to that. But as a Catholic, we were brought up in traditional Catholicism. We were told as well, we don't really question things. This is how it is. And if we don't understand something, it's God's will. I went through pretty much every sacrament except for holy orders, and there was no way I was becoming a priest. and,
Hello.
and then anointing, or the anointing upon death, of course, and all of that. So but I did the Holy Communion, the Holy Penance. I did the, baptism. I did confirmation, and I remember meeting the bishop, and he took one look at me at He took one look at me in 13 and said, "Would you slap him?" Because the tradition was that after they, they confirmed you, they would give you a quick slap.
Oh.
So, yep. So, with all of that, I did leave Catholic school. Now, for most of you who ever grew up in Catholic school in the 70s, corporal punishment was still a part of the nuns. I mean, I've had my hair pulled. I had, my knuckles rattled. I had the thing. Now, I was lucky enough I never got the paddle. Now, for those who don't know what the paddle was, that was the ultimate. You know how you get the tension now and you kind of go soft and, oh, I got the tension. No, the paddle was that you got sent to the principal for something very severe, and the principal would come back with you into the classroom and explain how she didn't want to do this, but because of God's law of punishment, and because of what you did, it's the lesson you learn. And then she would paddle your butt with a wooden mallet about that, not a mallet, but a wooden paddle about that big in front of the class.
I would be going to
Wow.
hell.
I'm kind of glad.
Okay.
Practice.
So-
I would have fought back, and then we really would have had a
So, yeah.
problem.
But what I did find, for me at least, was when I went to Jesuit high school, was that the priest started talking about how certain parts of the Bible were only allegory, which means they were pretty much stories, which made me begin to question, well, wait a minute, if this part's allegory, what's with the rest of it? And that's where that led us to our book today. But I ended up looking at the Buddhist practices. I looked into Kabbalah for a while, and then I found Unity. And Unity fit the bill for me because it connected at least for me, it connected the spirituality I was looking for through Buddhism and through, the Kabbalah with the mysticism and all of that. Reverend Ogun, who was a mentor of mine, used to say that Unity was for Buddhists who couldn't let go of Jesus. So that was that. So the reason I bring that up, because then I want to now kick it back to my daughter and her religious beliefs, because she was lucky enough to be raised in Unity. Her mom tried to convert her one time. I got it. Don't worry. I got you.
Listen.
I got you.
Once again.
Well, in my perspective, Unity teachings or really good food. So, it was a 50-50 for my part. No, but like he said, out of the three of us, was lucky enough to be raised Unity, so I didn't get beatings from random strangers, and I didn't have people telling me you can't question stuff, because I question stuff all the time. I think it's every other day I have another question about something. But no, honestly, I was raised Unity, and I did learn different things that make more sense. And yes, we do follow the teachings from the Bible, but learning it in the way of Unity, it does help you better understand what's going on. On top of, you're not constricted to one thing, and I can be able to do stuff without having the fear of being punished or getting beaten or anything like that. But the thing I do love most about this book is that even though I was raised Unity, I do have friends who are in the Christian belief and things like that. So sometimes it makes me question and teeter sometimes as well.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it, and that's the reason I brought the three of us together to go over this book. It started as a study group one time at a friend of ours' house. This book was recommended to me when I wanted to make transitions from my old, what we call embedded theology, which means that, with spaced repetition, something, even though it may or may not be true, becomes part of us because it was constantly repeated. We start to believe that it's exactly as everybody says. But if that was true, why is there so many versions of one religion? And why are there so many things to do? So this book was introduced to me, and it's called Alternatives. And what I love about the author in here, he says the same thing. He says, we're not here to change your mind. We're not here to, at the end of this book, you've got to convert or whatever. What we're here is to give you alternatives. And there are so many people who have done that. There's a movie, I can't think of the title at the moment, but the gentleman was listening to a sermon in his church. He didn't feel well with it. It didn't sit with him. He went traveling and found all the different religions and got a touch of each one. And when he was done and figured out what he wanted, he was able to come back to his same church and now hear the sermon, same priest, or I think it was a minister or a pastor, but he was able to interpret it better.
Right.
So, and plain and simple, if we all really think about it, when I think of my unity bringing, I think of an old saying that may or may not trigger some people, but I heard, and this was a very, very fundamental Christian person who said, we spend too much time worshiping the man rather than following the teachings. And that's what brought me to unity, because that's what we do. We follow the teachings and we practice it. It's practical. So what this book is going to do for us over the next couple of weeks is to take a look at what we know and give us some alternative views on it. Now, at the end of it, you see yourself moving in a different direction or maybe investigating something, great. If at the end of it, you still believe what you believe, even better. And if you find yourself questioning, that's the best you can do, is go out there and question everything, because you need to find this for yourself. And I'm going to just quickly read from the author's notes here. He says, many of our doctrines and teachings of Christian religion are accepted as it follows without question. Many of us have learned the tenets of our religion early in life. Perhaps during our Sunday school days, as life becomes more complicated, we simply continue to accept what we had learned earlier. Life no longer afforded time for religious exploration or development. The book is intended to give you an opportunity to explore some of your beliefs you have accepted and to determine for yourself whether they are still fitting. In the exploration, several things may happen for you. You may become strengthened in your childhood beliefs. You may find upon investigation that the validity of some or all of your past beliefs is in question, or you may find that are alternative beliefs that make more sense to you today. In the pages ahead, such alternatives will be offered for your consideration. So I can tell you, I was born into the Catholic religion. I make jokes because my godparents, who I have not seen ever again, the story supposedly goes that the woman who's my godmother, her husband couldn't be my godfather because he was Jewish. So they had to find some stand-in, who I still don't know who this guy is, to be my godfather. So I wasn't given a choice of what religion I was in until I became a teenager. And due to the life I was living at that point, I was able to make my own decisions to say, I want more. I want to find out more. So with you, how did you become a Baptist other than that?
Oh, well, I was kind of born into it. As a kid, we are definitely taught not to question authority, not to question our parents, not to question grandparents, not to question anything. What you're told, you do. Kids, when I was growing up, kids were meant to be seen and not heard. So I basically just had to be a Baptist because that's what I was told we are. And you just follow along. You don't question, you don't think outside the box, none of that. But I'm, as they say, a free spirit. And I'm always questioning and wondering, well, that don't make no sense. And I've always been very boisterous. That's one of the things I used to get in trouble for a lot. I will say something and say what's on my mind before I'm like, oh, probably should have said that. So it took me up into the age about 17 where I just was like, I don't want to go to church anymore. And at that point, I was working, so I made an excuse to have hours on Sundays to not have to go to church. It was a little gig. It wasn't nothing big or anything like that. But once I became about 17 years old, and I was working with my mother and her small business, and so I purposely would go and work or go to her house on Sunday so I wouldn't have to go to church, because it just didn't sit right with me. I had so many questions. I was so confused, and you never got an answer. And the minute you question, especially because my grandmother was like an elder. She was the mother of the church, so she's been there and helped found one church that we went to. So it's like, if I was to question, they would be like, oh my gosh, not her granddaughter questioning the pastor. Oh my goodness, absolutely not. That's blasphemy. So I just kept quiet, didn't question anything, but there was something I had too many questions and never getting answers. And I knew the Bible, all 66 books of them. Like, you know what I mean? We had to recite them in Sunday school, and you learned them, you know? And it still just didn't. So I kind of, when I had the opportunity to not go back to church, I just didn't. And I just kind of just floated around until you convinced me to go to you. And let me tell you, when I say convinced, I'm
was
stubborn.
abused.
I'm stubborn. Listen, this is me. Take me or leave me. I'm stubborn, and I like to make my own mind up and make my own decisions. So, because even though I hadn't been to church since I was like 17 years old, and at this time we had moved to Pennsylvania, and I was in my late 20s, you know, yeah, about 26 or what have you, he started going to this Church of Unity, and I'm like, what is that? Absolutely not. So I purposely found a Christian church just to be like, no, my grandmama at that time my grandmother had passed away. I'm like, she's turned over her grave. I am not following you to hell. You can go by yourself, okay? I'm not doing it. And so I'm like, you're not taking my kids and putting them in this religion and this cult and this and this that, because again, I was under the influence of Christianity was the end all be all. Baptism, being a Baptist, was the end all be all. There was nothing else. There was nothing else. There was nothing else. And it took some time, and then he gave me the book Alternatives. And I tell you, I was in my bedroom, sitting in my bed, reading the book, and I'm yelling out, are you kidding me? I've been bamboozled. Like, what? And things just started to click and started to make sense. And I'm like, oh, okay. I can understand the Bible more through Alternatives and learning through Unity than I did all the years that I have been in church. And I'm like, Grandma, I love you, but I gotta find my own path, my own pathway. And then the first time that I went to a Sunday service, it was right after my mother passed, and the amount of love that I felt from that first meeting, I was like, okay. And then I wanted to learn more, and it was baby steps. It was very, very, it was like, okay, well, what does this mean? And when I asked questions, I got answers. It wasn't someone just saying, well, you need to follow this, and you need to read this, and you need to do this, and then I have a question, no one knows the answer to it. Or they say, well, that just is how it is. No, I actually could find the answers in books, and people actually knew what they were talking about. And so I learned more and started studying a little bit of metaphysics, which I'm still learning metaphysics, you know, that's a big one for me. And learning affirmative prayer and different things like that. And it opened me up to learn and to grow. And then I discovered meditation and yoga and crystals and essential oils. And it's just like, oh, like it was great. And it only took just being able to be exposed to just a little bit. And I was incredibly happy. And that book definitely, it broke something in me, because I'm like, makes sense. Oh, this is interesting. I didn't know this. I thought it was always like this. This is why this happened in the Bible. Got it, you know? So, yeah.
I just like the part where she says you don't question your pastor, and since, you know.
Yeah, see, now that...
To be fair, beforehand, you weren't.
Once again, I am a free spirit. I am my own person. I will listen, but I still have to take... My grandma used to call me hard-headed. She's like, you're going to keep hitting your head against the wall until you see the blood on the wall and say, oh, shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, I learned by doing, so...
And it is, as she said, it's a perfect example of what embedded theology is. You know, you were blessed that you didn't have to go through that. But like there are things in me that still, even as an ordained minister, that still pop up from my Christian background.
Right.
You know, and they still come up, and you kind of start questioning yourself. You know, one of the things that I do love about the book, as well as what we do at our Unity, is just that we don't judge others.
Yep.
You know, when I had my last talk for my ordination, one of the quotes that I love is Ram Dass, who says, "We're all just walking each other home." And what brought me to Unity was an article in Unity magazine, which each chapter was a different person. Was an imam from the Muslim religion, was a rabbi from the Jewish faith, who all attend Unity. Not that they gave up their religion, but that we're there, and that's the beauty of it, because we welcome you in. I am one, and I will put it out there, is my pet peeve is when people find a new path and now they use that to discredit other people.
Right.
Why? We're all saying the same thing,
Yep.
just from a different perspective. I'll give you a perfect example based on a conversation my wife and I were having yesterday, as well as I've used this in my talks. And it's the verse from Luke 19:26, which says, "I tell you that everyone who has will be given, but from him who has not has even what." I tell you that everyone who has will be given, but from him who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And I know that for years that's been used to say the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Once we began to learn things like prosperity and understanding that what was actually being said was, if we can see with a grateful heart what we have, we'll be open to receive more. But if we're looking upon what we have, which are the blessings that have been given to us in any way, with a lack eye or a lack mentality, then why would more come in? Because we're already saying we don't have what we have.
And I just wanted to reiterate that when I was a kid growing up Baptist, my grandmother always used to say, if you have one dress and if you have one room, keep it clean, take care of it. Because why would God bless you with more or bigger things if you can't appreciate and take care of this little thing that, like she would say, as he gave you. So why would he give you more? Through Unity, we know you need to work for those particular things. But it was the same principle. It's like, be grateful for what you have. Enjoy that. And nourish that so that you're open to receive more. So it's like I took what she said and I found unity through it. And I'm like, oh.
And that's a perfect example, because that's a Baptist perspective on it.
Yeah.
But yet, I just spoke about it from a unity perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And from a Catholic perspective, there may be another verse to that. So again, as we become evolved, our religion should be evolving. Someone I remember said that if your minister is not reevaluating his relationship or her relationship with God, I would run away. Because if they're stuck in one mindset, nothing's growing, nothing's evolving. And we know that there's plenty of verses that Jesus said in there that talks about the dying and cutting away so forth and so on, because it's about growth.
Right.
So with that being said, we left you without talking, so
I was enjoying it. I was like, go ahead.
But one of the things is, and again, it's not a knock on any religion that I can talk about, but as we get into this book is, the restrictiveness of what we think. So think about, growing up Catholic, and growing up as a young guy or young man, I didn't understand why we hated certain people or we hated certain groups. And the Bible was used as a weapon. And I know for me, I actually started to hate the book because of the fact that all I ever heard coming out of that book was, if you were this type of person, you were rewarded, whatever. If you weren't, then you were that, and you're not supposed to be this. And then I would meet these people and feel the love and feel the whatever, and asking in my mind, because again, nobody's supposed to question, why are we hating on these people? Why are we hating on this group of people? Why are we hating? And as we evolved, we found out that played into color, played into race, played into sex, played into, whatever, lifestyle. They played into everything. And it's like, well, heck, by the time I minus all these people, who's left?
Right.
And it's like, and I understand if that's the belief is the belief, but as you dive into history and actually start learning, So again, and I'll let you speak to that. You've never had to go through that hatred. You've never had to go through discriminating against a certain race, a certain bias, a certain gender, whatever. You know, how open has that helped you with your friendships and stuff like that?
Well, there's two parts to that because yes, I didn't go through those hardships and I am open to everything and welcoming to everyone and inclusive. But I also, because I was that way, sometimes the friends or the classmates or anybody I meet did have those perspectives where they weren't inclusive and welcoming to other people. So it sometimes made me feel like an outsider. Not that I have a problem with that because you know what? I love who I love. I love all different types of people. I welcome everyone. I don't really care. But there was a point, like in high school, when you're in that, or middle school, and you're in that mix where you're trying to fit in. That was a big part. No one can tell me wrong. That you had to have that struggle where you look at people and you sit there and you're like, why? And then you like feel bad for them, but at the same time, you start questioning your own beliefs because you hear all this hatred and negativity. But then once you meet those same people, like you said, you're like, all you feel is the love and the acceptance and everything like that. So, being that's the type of person we are, I truly am grateful for it because of the fact that the positive side to it is the fact that people who can't feel or appreciated or loved from others, they feel safe enough to come to me. I've had people who were gay and they couldn't tell anybody, not their parents, not classmates, not their very own friends, but they felt safe enough to come to me and admit that they were gay, and they felt okay enough to come to me and be like, I need to tell you this. And I cheered them on as if it was their birthday or they had graduated something, and they felt wonderful about it. Now, and it actually did, some of them did find the courage from talking to me to open up. Now, of course, I don't know what happened afterwards, whether they got accepted or not, but being that way, it helps not only myself, but also pushes others to feel more open and accepting to others, and also has people to feel comfortable and safe for to come to us and be open to whatever they believe in, whatever they do, and whatever they feel. So it's a positive and negative, but I try to lean more to the positive because that's how I am. But there can be challenges sometimes to it too. But all in all, it is very big positive being that person that's a safe place and a safe space for somebody who can't experience the inclusiveness and love that we give to others.
And I think that's a big thing because no matter what, everybody, because even I've done it, your mother has had, just from going to Unity, we've had people put us down or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Because
I've cried many a tears on the path in my journey, because it's like I've had people on Facebook message me, and I'll put a particular quote or something, and they will message me and tell me how I'm a disgrace, and I wasn't raised that way, and I should be ashamed of myself, and you're teaching your children the wrong way, and I mean, like, and I would just sit there and be like, but I'm teaching them to be decent human beings and to love everyone. Why did, you know? So yeah, it can be challenging at times, but yeah.
and it's not just around the Unity religion. It could just be the beliefs.
Yeah.
I'm one, and people have heard me say this all the time, and I got this from Stedman Graham's book, and it's Leaders, Not Labels. And I'm one that I look at the people who I've spoken in front of, who happen to be in a different lifestyle than I am or whatever. It's why do we have to label it? Why can't it just be love? Two people found each other. They're happy. They're in love. Great. I don't care anything else. Treat each other well. I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
I had the privilege of marrying a friend and, his partner. And, I've been asked for that. And I've worked with so many people that, both faith, colors, race, it doesn't matter. And it's beauty because you look past that, that stigma that's given. Right. So I brought all of this up not to start, a big conversation, but to start that's what the purpose of Alternative, of me picking this book for this and bringing, my family into this is so that you can understand from 3 different generations, from different religious backgrounds, how this type of information is not meant to change anyone, but to give you an alternative view. And if nothing else, is to understand what other people going. And my daughter had the experience when I was asked to speak at an interfaith service.
Oh yes, I remember that.
And they were small, but you know what? If anyone felt it, they knew the love in the room, because I was asked to speak. There was a female Protestant minister, there was a rabbi, there was a Catholic priest,
I remember that.
and all of that. And I mean, talk about somebody who was nervous, because I still wasn't out of a ministerial school. And here it is, I've got a Catholic priest quoting what I was saying. I'm like, wait, hold on. What's going on here?
Full circle.
Just saying at that was really never.
Yeah. So, and that was the beauty of it, that you can bring all those religions into one home, And then the next time that I spoke, and yeah, you were there for that one, was when we spoke at the church in Scranton, where I got to stand up on the podium thing, and I had people doing affirmations where most people would have been like, oh, what is he doing up there? And they joined in, and it was love between everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what this book series is about. And I wanted to bring the love, and I wanted to bring my family's experience. So like I said, you have someone who was brought up Baptist. You have someone who's brought up Catholic and dabbled in a few other things. You have somebody who was raised in unity, who's in that younger generation, who has people around them who are in that teetering, because I was about 15 when I finally started to question my religion. Now I didn't have a lot of influence behind that, where I was being forced to someone. But again, I've had my own close kin tell me, well, you know better. You know exactly what God is and all that. And I sat there and smiled, because you're right, I do. But I know what God is for me. Mm-hmm. That person got angry. That's okay. I don't need the anger doesn't have to come from anything. If somebody comes and talks to me about another religion, I want to know. I want to know more. Tell me more. I want to know where the similarities are. I want to know where the differences are, because then I am a better minister for my people, because I can say, well, I came to Unity, but I'm interested in God. Great, I know an Iman who can talk to you about that.
Right.
Or I know, a rabbi or a Protestant person, or someone who wants to go into ministry and maybe have a lifestyle that most churches won't accept. Well, okay, guess what? I know someone who's an ordained pastor of a church who also happens to be in a same-sex relationship. Maybe let's go talk to her, and she can enlighten you how this works. That's the beauty of this. So Alternatives is just a starting point, just a place where you can start a journey, starting at the end, just like the author says. Either 1, you hold on to your childhood beliefs. 2, you start to question maybe a little bit, or maybe look for more information about your beliefs. 3, maybe your beliefs come into question, like, wait a minute, just like my wife said. She was like, well, wait a minute, this isn't what I learned. And I can tell you how many times I've said, wait a minute, somebody left this line out the Bible when I was growing up, and things like that. So that's what this book is about. So I encourage everybody to get the book Alternatives. It's called The New Approach to Traditional Christian Beliefs by William L. Fisher. If you go to our website at weesc.org and go to books, I do have an Amazon link there. The little bit that we get for the book just helps out, bring us more of this to you. Or you can buy it on your own. Either way is fine. Or you can just follow along in the talks. So next week, and I wish I had the ominous music in the background, you gotta love William Fisher, because he couldn't start off easy. He went right into it. So the first 2 things we will be reading about and sharing the alternatives to, and if you get the book, you'll see what I'm talking about, is we're going to discuss God and Jesus Christ.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if you get the book, you'll see they're very short chapters. Read those 2 chapters so you can follow along next week. Again, the book is about $10 on Amazon, I think, in paperback, and I forgot how much it is on Kindle. Again, our link on our website will take you there. So as always, I truly am grateful for you. I'm grateful for my wife and my daughter who decided to join me on this show so that we can bring you more. So it's not just my experience anymore. You're going to hear from 3 different generations, 3 different religious backgrounds. And, you may not relate to my growth. You may not relate to my wife's growth, and you may not relate to my daughter's growth. But somebody will find something to relate to within one of us 3. And I think that's what's going to make this show very powerful for people who want to attend. So get the book. Check us out as always. For those that know the tagline, we love you and there's nothing you can do about it. And we will see you on the next episode.